Howdy. I haven't talked about blogging in a very long time. And when I first started this channel, I was going to mainly talk about blogging and social media and such. So I decided to go and talk about blogging. And I'm going to talk about blogging in the context of poker. I don't get to play as much poker these days as I used to, but I used to play a lot of poker. And in this instance, I want to talk about relating blogging to the first poker tournament I was in. I actually did very well. It was kind of freaky in the fact that I started out well, and I'm sitting there feeling pretty smug about myself after almost an hour, and the guy across from me says, "Are you wearing your shirt like that because it's lucky?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you have your shirt on inside out." And I looked down, and sure enough, I had my shirt on inside out. I hadn't even paid attention. It shows how excited I was to be playing in the tournament. And I did okay. I ended up making the top 20. Unfortunately, in that particular tournament, you didn't earn any money unless you made the final 9, which happened to me a couple of times. Still, I thought it was pretty impressive, and I was happy with what I did. But I basically came back and I thought about it, and I related basically 5 things that I learned about blogging that I learned from that tournament. And I'm going to share those with you now. The first thing I learned is you always need to know where you're starting from. So in a poker tournament, you start off with so many dollars in chips. And that's important because the idea, of course, is to build the chips. But if the only thing you can do is kind of stay even with yourself the first day, or at least the first few hours, then that's pretty good. You don't want to be losing all kind of chips. And then you try to build up and build up so that you at least stay average. You can take some chances every once in a while to try to build your stack if you think you've got the right read. But in general, you want to kind of just, move along with everyone else. You want to really stick around. You're really trying to shoot for the money. In a bigger tournament, of course, you don't have to end up in the final 9. But in this one, it was a local tournament. So that's how that goes. So you have to do the same thing in blogging. In blogging, you pretty much have to have an idea of what you want to write about. When I started my I'm Just Sharing blog, for instance, I had no idea what I wanted to write about. So I was going to write about anything I wanted to. And I did. But it's hard to get traction when you do that. So I have eventually, or at least since that time, I focus on certain topics most of the time. Every once in a while, I deviate. But in general, I'm writing about blogging and writing and social media. That is the bulk of what I'm writing about there. Number 2. You can't just sit around waiting for perfect cards all the time. One of the realities of poker is that just because you start off with a pair of aces does not mean you're going to win. And sometimes you have to take some major risks. For instance, a guy named Doyle Brunson, who won, I think, the first 2 big poker tournaments back in the 70s, he won one of his tournaments playing a deuce 10. I mean, it's just amazing. You're thinking, deuce 10? Who would play that? Well, this guy did. He was, well known. He was a legend in poker before the tournament started coming up. And he won the tournament. So sometimes that's just how it is. You can't sit around waiting for your money to just decline. You have to take some chances and go on a big hand. Well, that's the same thing with blogging. You have to basically say, okay, I'm going to take some chances with what I'm writing. You can't write boring. You have to show some personality. You can't always not be controversial. There's always going to be someone who's going to disagree with something you have to say. But if your basic mindset is that you don't want to ever say anything that's going to upset anyone, you're not going to get it done. So you have to take those chances. You're probably going to find a lot more people who are going to agree with you most of the time. Number 3, if you don't have a goal set up, you don't know how to track your progress. This is really one of the issues that I had. I just thought I was going to write and people were going to come, and it didn't happen. And I didn't necessarily know about the analytics back then. I started this blog back in, the last month of 2008, and I started my other blog in 2005. And I was just basically going along doing my thing. People know a lot more now when they start blogging, but the truth of the matter is you still have to have a goal. For instance, is your goal to make money? Is your goal just to get out your word? For maybe you're a writer and your goal is to get people interested in the way you write so that they'll buy your books later on. Maybe you're looking to do consulting or writing for other people. But you have to know what your goals are so that while you're writing, you know what to expect or what you're aiming for. Without that, you're just kind of going in the wind. You're not really sure what you're doing. Number 4, you have to take advantage of the breaks when you get them. So one of those things that happens in poker is that every once in a while, everyone at the table is like passing or just like throwing in a little bit here and there. And every once in a while, you can take that chance and say, you know what, I'm going to raise and see how many of these people I can get out of here. And often, everyone will drop out because it turns out everyone has lousy cards. They were just hoping to get by on a freebie. Sure, you're not winning big, but you've now just won a pot. Anytime you're progressing by winning money, that's a good thing. Well, it's the same thing in blogging. You know, every once in a while, one of the things I like to do is I like to give interviews. A lot of people like to write guest posts. I'm not necessarily big on writing guest posts, but when I've been asked specifically to write one, then I will take advantage of that opportunity. It's been a while now, but I've done it. I've done it for people. Like I said, I like to give interviews. I like to get interviews. I love to interview people. I had one earlier this year with a guy named Scott. Oh, Lord, I'm forgetting his last name right now. He'd kill me if he saw this. But still, I like to do those kinds of things. I like to read a lot of other blogs, and I like to comment on those other blogs because you have to take advantage of those breaks that you have. There's a lot of things I won't do when it pertains to blogging, but it's not because I'm uppity or anything like that. It's just that I've done certain things in the past to try them out so I could write about them, and they didn't work out for me, so I gave it up. And number 5, hiding behind something artificial is really going to doom you. So you have poker players who wear sunglasses because they're worried about people seeing what their eyes are doing, but they don't pay attention to their hands. They don't notice that if they have a good hand, they riffle the chips differently than if they have a bad hand. People miss a lot of things that they do themselves that they read on other people. Well, it's the same thing about blogging. You know, one of those things that I absolutely hate is when I'm reading an article and I'm just sick in knowing that this person's a phony. What they're writing about is something that they know nothing about. They don't care. It's no personality. A lot of times they're stealing from someone else. I absolutely hate that. I've been to a ton of blogs where they write the exact same thing over and over. And I'm thinking, you know what? Nobody thinks exactly like someone else to write the exact same words. So they're faking it. I hate that kind of thing. You know, you got to be true to yourself. You have to be authentic. Even if you write about the same thing someone else does, your voice is going to sound different. And you're going to find your audience. So you have to be true to yourself. You can't be fake. You can't be artificial because people feel it. It's just like doing videos. People will feel if you sound like a phony. They're just going to do it. Anyway, there's those 5 things that I was able to relate blogging to poker. Now, this is interesting because one of the things I've always written about is that you can probably find a lesson in almost anything you do. You could probably relate blogging to picking pumpkins or apples or taking a drive in the country. You know, a little bit of creativity. That's what helps to make you authentic as well. Anyway, my name's Mitch Mitchell. Like, subscribe, share, do what you want to. Comment. Even if you think this is goofiness, comment. There you go. I'm out. Y'all take care.